On which, you know what, you hadn't been having him. He ain't been on in a long time. What's going on with him?
Nothing. We just haven't had enough time to do it together. So that's
Oh,
all. Mhm. Hold on. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the Mic Check Podcast. Welcome back. This is your co-host, Quinton, back in the building. Q, as everybody likes to call me. Appreciate everybody that's going to be watching this. But before we go any further, I want to make sure that everybody likes, comments, subscribe, and please share this podcast. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of effort. And every time that you share this, somebody else sees this. This is really going to help us out a whole lot. Me and T appreciate the continued support. Tonight, I have a really, really special guest on. For those who know me, they'll know who this guy is.
right.
But I've been thinking about this for a long time, ever since we did this show. Didn't know if he was going to be able to join me, but everybody give it up. Give a warm round of applause and welcome to my dad, my former AAU basketball coach, former college basketball player of his own. I mentioned about his accolades as a coach. Great high school player in Los Angeles. Went on to have a Division I scholarship at not one but two schools. Then went on to coach me and teach me how to play the game of basketball. Taught me most of what I know. My father, Myron Lilley. Welcome on, Dad.
Thank you, son. Glad to be on board with you, and also been looking forward to doing this for quite some time now. I watch you and T religiously do your thing in the past, in the last few episodes and stuff like that, and just glad to be on board and glad to see what you guys are doing right now.
No doubt, no doubt. So, for those that don't know, my dad is a LA Laker fan through and through from the beginning. So let's start. That's a great place to start, Dad. What is your earliest memory of watching the Lakers, and what really drew you into being a Laker fan growing up as a kid in LA?
Well, naturally, just growing up in LA, we've always had successful teams for the most part throughout, these decades. And obviously growing up in Los Angeles, the LA Lakers has always been the mainstay. And, as long as I can remember, I've been, a Laker fan, probably even before, the great Magic Johnson, arrived there in 1979. I was, still a big Laker fan. I always tell people I can only remember one particular year where I didn't root for the Lakers, and that was just in one championship series, and that was when the Lakers played the Philadelphia 76ers in 1983. And the only reason why I was pulling for the 76ers because I loved the Dr. J, and I wanted him to get a championship. So that was probably the only time that I rooted against the Lakers. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, over time, you have passed on, a lot of basketball knowledge. You've seen a lot of basketball games. So just kind of talking about from the beginning of when you started watching the game to what we're seeing now, because the topic mainly that we're going to talk about tonight is going to be the Lakers versus the Warriors series. You and I had a chance to talk off air a little bit about the game last night, and I thought it was such a good topic that this is something I wanted to bring onto the show. What do you think, if you had to boil it down to maybe three things that you've seen has been the biggest difference between the NBA game when you first started watching it, when you were a college basketball player, compared to now? What do you think would be maybe three of the biggest differences you've seen, or some of the transitions that we've seen between the game being different now?
Well, I would say probably right off the top of my head would probably number one would probably just be the overall skill level of all the players in general. During my time, if, for example, if you were if you were taller than maybe 6'8", most of the time you was playing center. And now a 6'8" person, he's a guard, and a lot of times, a point guard, and that's what was so impressive about Magic Johnson, when he came, into the league, him and Larry Bird, they kind of, rejuvenated the game and redefined the game, if you will, because you never saw someone that tall that could go up and down the floor gracefully, as he did, and hound the ball as well as he did, and pass like he did, and and stuff like that. So I think today's players are just overall much more overall skilled, because they you have 7-footers that can shoot it. Like I look at a Kevin Durant, being 6'10", 6'11", and the stuff that he can do, hound the ball, shoot it from mid-range, go to the basket, can shoot the three, so that's one thing I would say is just the overall development of the player for the skill level. I think secondly, I would say a big change has been obviously the 3-point shot. I think it's become dramatically a perimeter game than the times like when I played and stuff like that. If you now it's you rarely see 7-footers that really want to go down into the paint and be a dominant force in the paint. Everybody still wants to go out and kind of show their perimeter skills and shoot the three and and stuff like that. And this is even to the point not just here in the US but even internationally. You see a lot of players of that size, and so I kind of see it as a good thing, and also kind of see it as a not so good thing. And then finally, I guess I would say just the maybe the overall speed of the game. The overall speed of the game. A lot of players are able to get up and down the floor and stuff like that. And again, going back to my Lakers and the first Laker, the Lakers show of the old forum days in Inglewood. They prior to that, you didn't really see teams that really ran like that and got up and down the floor, and it brought a new dimension to the game, I think, and and stuff like that. Yeah, in my opinion, at least in my time, in my age. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. So, we just, like I mentioned before, we wanted to kind of, go through some of the experiences that you've had. Obviously, not only did you have a lot of experience playing the game, but you had a lot of experience coaching in the game too. Why don't you talk to me just a little bit about, just so some of the fans can have some context into, what really got you into wanting to coach and wanting to, give back to the future generations of players like we see now that are developing these skill sets at earlier ages, and how maybe some of your experience from the coaching aspect has kind of contributed to some of that. Because one of the things that I always remember as a kid was that all of your players went through all of the same drills, right? We didn't have, position specific drills. Everybody on all of the teams that I'm on for you, we all did the same drill. So if we were doing ball handling, everybody did ball handling. If we were doing shooting drills, everybody did shooting drills. And obviously everybody did defensive drills. So what kind of was your inspiration into that? And what kind of made you have the foresight to say, hey, I want all of the players that are playing under me to have a well-rounded skill set? Where do you think that kind of came from?
But just kind of maybe probably my own upbringing. I played AAU ball for a team called the West Side Blazers under the direction of Mr. Oswald Walks. And I just kind of really just adopted that from him, and just my own development it didn't matter. He always had the mentality, and I took that same mentality because I felt that the more players that you had on your team that had a high skill level set, the more things you could do as a team, from a team standpoint, a lot more options and things that you could do. So I just kind of adopted that. And, so it wasn't nothing that I just kind of came up on my own. It was something that I was kind of brought up on, where we were trained and taught to know how to handle the ball, shoot the ball, post up if necessary. And obviously, like you said, play defense and, stuff like that. Now obviously, we may have had players that, that shot the 3 ball and they worked on that shot, but, everybody still worked on shooting. When in my day, I wasn't a great 3-point shooter, and so, but I had a very strong, mid-range game, so 17 to 19 feet, I could stick that jump shot, and I was athletic enough and explosive enough that teams had to respect that, because most of the time I was very athletic and jumped well, and I could get to the rim and finish and, and stuff like that. So then teams started, kind of playing off of me. And so then that forced me to really kind of work on that jump shot, but never was a great 3-point shooter, but, mid-range, player with that shot, that it was really, that really mattered. So I just try to adopt that same, mentality, when I was some of those teams that you played on and the guys that you played with when we were coming up and stuff like that. And then as a sidebar, son, just to let you know that one of the other things that really why I kind of got into this was that really that was just my way, 2 things, but one, it was my way of being able to spend more quality time with you, my son, and I, at the time obviously you was my, my firstborn. And so that was my way of, introducing you to the game. And maybe that could be something that we always would have a connection with, like we do now, and stuff like that. And then also, again, adopting from my days of playing under in the Blazer program, it's all about shaping and molding young men, to grow up and be, good, productive adults, in society. And I just tried to use basketball, as that bridge to, help and shape, young men, and, just help them to stay away from trouble, to be in something constructive, to expose them to, other things that they may not have seen before. And, one of the things that always gave me gratitude was when we would go on, those national tournaments and travel out of the state to different places and play and compete and stuff like that. And just to see the look on some kids' faces, because, of being, letting them see something outside of what they was used to growing up and stuff like that. So that was really my purpose, was just trying. And I just said, if I was lucky to have some players to get scholarships or maybe even go, all the way to the top, to the pros. And to me, that was just gravy. I always had a goal for you guys to mold you enough to where if you got to high school, that minimally you was going to start JV as a freshman, or you were going to be on the varsity team. And I think God blessed me to where you were, a lot of those players you played with and all those guys, that there was not a lot of kids that not only was able to do that, but a lot of them went on to, play college level basketball, whether it's Division I or Division II.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the track record speaks for itself. For those that don't know, my dad or I personally, we had a very successful program for about 5 years on the AAU circuit, placing routinely in the top 10 at all of the national tournaments that we played in. So, a lot of success there, which ultimately helped me, to prepare myself not only for high school, but for, like Dad said, for the college game. But we'll spin this forward, and we'll get into this Lakers topic. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up here. The Lakers currently, as everybody can see down in that bottom left-hand corner there, the Lakers currently just picked up a huge game one road win yesterday evening. Tonight is Wednesday night for everybody that's going to watch this more than likely on Thursday morning. So, Dad, just your immediate thoughts on the game as a whole and kind of maybe what you think about the way the Lakers came out, and attacked the Warriors in game one overall.
I thought they came out with a lot of energy. You could tell that they had a strong game plan. And I was real impressed with their defense. They really played very, very good defense, I thought. Their rotations were good. They were helping the helper on their defensive rotations. And I really think that that's ultimately what helped them to, win that game last night. Was by them, staying solid, with their defensive plan that they had. I thought the young man Vanderbilt, I thought he did a great job on Curry. Because you're not going to shut down Curry. That's just a given fact. But if you can just keep him to where he just doesn't just totally just hurt you so bad, like he did the other day against Sacramento, scoring 50 points. As long as you can kind of hopefully keep him in that 20 to 30, 35 range or something like that, then I think you sometimes, have a chance. I thought that they, just really did a great job. They seemed to stick with what they were doing. They recognized that they had an advantage, inside, and they were really focused in trying to go into AD and, stuff like that. I thought some of the other players could have, I was thinking that LeBron could have maybe went down in the post a little bit more than he did last night. Look, I think he was kind of settling and stuff like that, but he made some shots when he needed to, and also definitely, played some defense. I saw him really getting out to have some nice block shots and, like I said, rotations and rebounding. And so I think that's if they can stick with that, hopefully, even if they may not shoot the ball very well, I think that at least will keep them, in striking distance of potentially winning a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of going back to what you said about Vanderbilt, that's a great place to start, because I think that coming into the game, I had some thoughts that he really should be the guy to take Curry early. And from what I could see here, I'm looking at the stats. I was able to pull them up here. They hit 21 threes, the Warriors did. 6 of those threes came from Curry, another 6 from Clay, another 6 from Jordan Poole. So realistically, when you look at it, those 3 guys hit 18 of their 21 threes. But if you go and you look at the plus minus on this box score, Curry played almost 38 minutes. He was 10 for 24 from the field. But he was a -1 in the game. So that really goes to show you the kind of defense that Vanderbilt was able to play, because while Curry shot a decent percentage from 3, he was 6 for 13 from 3, where the key difference was between game 7 against the Kings and game 1 against the Lakers is that his 2-point percentage was not very good at all. He only ended up being 10 for 24 from the field, meaning he was 4 for 11 from 2. So,
Right.
And almost half of those shots he missed were block shots, because I believe LeBron blocked him twice, AD blocked him twice, and I think Vanderbilt may have blocked him once as well. So that speaks to not only the team defense, but specifically individually, kind of giving a shout out to Jared Vanderbilt, which, I know that he doesn't give us a lot on offense as a Lakers team, but he's going to be so valuable in this series because he can just focus all his energy on making Curry work, denying him the basketball. And the one thing I did see that they started to do at the end of the game was, instead of allowing Curry to get denied at the end of the game, they were letting Curry bring the ball up the floor to initiate offense.
Right.
While that works in spurts, I think that that's going to start to tire Curry out even more, because now he's going to be having to bring the ball up and try to score and try to distribute, if that's the strategy that the Warriors and Steve Kerr are going to continue to try to go with moving forward. Let's just go ahead and transition this into talking a little bit about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis was 11 for 19 from the field. He had 30 points. He was a +1. But the key stat, and I really, really was impressed by this, 23 rebounds, 19 defensive rebounds, but not only that, 4 offensive rebounds in the game. What were your thoughts on how he played and performed in a game that really was in the balance towards the end of the game as the Warriors started to make a run?
Well, son, I'm gonna tell you that I think how deep the Lakers go from this point, forward, is really going to be up to AD. I mean, that's just plain and simple. I think that when he is motivated to do his best by dominating inside, then I think the Lakers are real hard out, with everybody else they got, and with LeBron and the pieces that they got, D-Lo and the Reeves kid has really come around and playing well. I really like his way of getting the team into their sets and making the right passes and right decisions and stuff like that. I really think that it just really sums up that way when he can't have a up and down series like he's been known to have from time to time, where he might have one monster game and then the next game he's subpar, and then he'll come back and have another. I mean, he has to be solid. He has to at least minimally. I would say, if you're looking at numbers wide, he got to give us, like 25 and 15 every night. He got to give us 25 and 15, or more.
Yeah, and I think that that's realistic, because when you talk about the Warriors, right? Every team has weaknesses. There's not one team in the NBA, especially in this season, that is completely well-rounded with no weaknesses. If you want to talk about the Suns, great star power, great scoring, but not a bench. You talk about the Lakers, big, fast, athletic, but not a great shooting team. You talk about the Warriors, great shooting team, small, and don't play great defense either. Sacramento had the same issue. They were a good scoring team, but they didn't play much defense. I think that that's the real big thing that's going to be interesting to watch in Game 2, is to see how both teams adjust, because I saw something interesting, and Nick Wright actually said it on First Things First on Fox Sports a couple of days ago. He said whoever is able to adjust to the drastic change between their round 1 and round 2 matchup better between the Lakers and the Warriors is ultimately the team that he thinks will win the series, even though he's picking the Lakers to win in 6. Because the Lakers went from playing one of the worst shooting teams when you talk about the Memphis Grizzlies to the best shooting team when you talk about the Warriors, while the Warriors went from playing against one of the worst defensive teams to now playing against one of the best defensive teams when you talk about, the LA Lakers from the Sacramento Kings. So that's going to be a key. And I meant to mention this earlier, but the Warriors hit 21 threes. 18 of those threes came from the 3 guys that I mentioned, Poole, Clay, and Steph. However, the Lakers only made 6 threes entirely. So Steph on his own had as much as the Lakers did. And for probably, I would say, 39 minutes of this game, the Lakers had a pretty strong control of it. Right. What do you think the Lakers are going to need to do moving forward, or what are some adjustments that they could make to not have the lapse that they had at the end of the game in the final 5 or 6 minutes? Because the Warriors really gave us a scare there at the end. They went on a 14-0 run, cut the lead down to 2, but ultimately we were able to make our free throws and make enough plays down the stretch to get a 5-point win.
I'm gonna tell you like this, son. I'm gonna agree with you when you and I were talking about it through text last night. I think a lot of that is going to have to do with the coaching, because if they if he's going to if they're going to keep that same rotation, he's going to have to spell them with timeouts especially AD and LeBron, if he's going to leave them out there to play, significant minutes, he's going to have to really use those timeouts to give them a blow. I think that some of the role players need to kind of step up a little bit. I mean, D'Lo had 19, but his 19 was kind of non-existent.
9 for 19 and 1 for 5 from 3.
Right, exactly. And he's a fairly solid, outside shooter, for the most part. But I think that again, when you get into the playoffs, you're going to have your stars that, most of the time will get theirs. But the key to winning series is, how your role players and your bench, adjust, however that rotation is, that 7-8, player rotation that you're going to use, you need to get some, key play from those role players. And it don't always have to be scoring, but it could be the rebounding and, the defense, and getting those 50-50 balls and, things of that nature. So I just think they, that Golden State is going to come out real hungry, because they want to tie it up. Most people will say, they did what they need to do, and that might be part of the case. But you want to try to. I always say this: if you're going to lose that second game, in my opinion, don't let it be like a blowout. That you lose the game. If you're going to lose it, because that can kind of be, give the other team a lot more momentum coming back to your place. But if they kind of say, if it's a 5-point game and Golden State still won or something like that. Now Golden State said, well, man, we barely, got by these guys, and now we're going back to their place, and obviously, that for the most part this year, Golden State hasn't played well, on the road. However, you give them some credit in that first round of, or rather in the different rounds of the playoffs they've been playing. They've won some games on the road that they had to, but it's taken some great heroics by some certain players like Curry, having to score, 40 and 50 points in order for them to do that, so. Mm-hmm.
No doubt. And I think I did actually put out a tweet last night, or I think right after we talked or right before we talked about the game. The 4 things that I thought the major adjustments that the Lakers are going to need to make, you already mentioned one, so we're on the same accord there. Using the bench to start the fourth quarter to try to give the starters a little bit of a break, because if you notice, Steve Kerr went to his bench to start the fourth quarter. They weren't able to cut into the lead, but he was able to spell the lead and keep it around the same amount. I think it was like a 10-point lead pretty much right before his starters got back in the game. And They were able to finish that game strong with a final push in that last 7 or 8 minutes. But, the Lakers were really starting to drag towards the end of the game because AD played the entire second half. LeBron played all but 2 minutes in the second half, and really the only guy that they put in the game that came off the bench, and he had a really strong game, I thought, was Dennis Schroeder. And Dennis Schroeder played a very good game as well. 9% from the free throw line.
Well, yeah.
He hit a bunch of key free throws, and he also played some great defense. But the 4 things I mentioned, one of them was play your bench a little bit more to start to set the fourth quarter to try to give your starters a little bit of a break. Number 2, they have to stop shooting the gaps on these down screens and these double screens and these pin down screens, because repeatedly, whether it was Troy Brown, whether it was D'Angelo Russell, whether it was Dennis Schroeder, who we just complimented, whoever was guarding the 3 main perimeter guys, every single time it seems like they tried to jump the screen, split the screen, or cut off and take the shorter cut route. Clay, Steph, and Jordan Poole was knocking down threes. And that was really the only times they were able to get open looks, was when we made defensive mistakes. Right. So that was my number 2 point. My number 3 point was, like you said, mentioned to get AD a little bit more paint touches in the post. I think AD does a great job in pick and rolls, and he scores a lot of his points off of pick and rolls. But I think just getting some sets where they can do some block-to-block screening action to kind of get him on the move in the paint. They do run a double screen away for him from the corner, that I do know that he likes to run. But just getting him a little bit more action in the paint is another thing. And then lastly, for me, was really just not allowing the Warriors to get any sense of confidence by going on these long runs without a timeout being called.
Right.
You know, I really think that anything over a 9-point run for the Warriors means it's an automatic timeout if you're a Laker fan. I don't think it needs to go any longer than that. I think that, Darvin Ham needs to have a short leash on that, because that's what the Warriors are. They're a team of runs. They're a team that loves to, get these rallies in spurts where they hit you with, 9, 12, 14 points in a row. And he has to try to help his team out by calling timeouts in those periods where, the Warriors start to get hot. So,
yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So last thing I was just going to ask you is, how do you see the series going from here? We've talked about the things we think that the Lakers are going to need to do to adjust for Game 2, but just as a series overall, what's kind of your prediction? What's your thought on what will end up happening in the series moving forward? As we look forward to Game 2, which will be tonight when everybody gets to see this tomorrow.
Right. That's a great question. A great question, but kind of hard to answer. But I really think that more than likely, I think Golden State will win tomorrow. I'm a Laker. I mean, I want the Lakers to win. If they can win 2, in San Francisco, that would be great. But I doubt if that's really going to happen. I just hope, like I said earlier, that if they're going to lose, that they play well and not get blown out. And then I just really feel I really see that if the Lakers can come home, and usually Lakers do play pretty well at home for the most part, at least in the second half of the season that they have. So if they can come home and then win those 2 games at home, then they kind of put themselves in the driver's seat, because now you're talking about, okay, we're 3-1, going back, to San Francisco. And playing that game. So at least I think that way it gives you 2 options, rather I should say, not 2 options, but two games to try to close out the series. So I'm looking at, definitely, 6 or 7. I think it'll go 6 or 7, and I'm definitely, I'm rooting for the Lakers to win that series.
Absolutely. And I've already made my pick online on social media. I didn't make a pick before the series started because I really kind of wanted to see, as constructed, how the Lakers were going to respond to, such a juggernaut offensive shooting team. But after seeing them play tonight, yesterday, I should say, last night, ultimately, I'm picking the Lakers to win in 6 games. I think that I agree with you. I think the Warriors make a comeback to win tomorrow night. Hopefully it is a close game where the Warriors don't see too much confidence swing their way. I think the Lakers will hold serve at home. And then ultimately, I think that we win this in Game 6 at Crypto.com Arena, a.k.a. the Staples Center, as it was previously called. And we move on. I think, a great playoff series is what everybody's looking at with the Lakers and the Warriors. I think all of these games are going to be fairly close. I really don't see blowouts in either direction just because of the contrast in styles.
Mm-hmm.
Again, everybody's going to watch and we'll be watching with you. So thank you so much, Dad, for coming on and joining me to have this great conversation. Thank you, everybody else that's been listening, watching, subscribing, and sharing the podcast. We appreciate you as well. Give us your feedback if you'd like to have my dad come back on. We'd be more than happy to have him back on for more discussions and topics as we move forward. But make sure that you follow, like, subscribe, and also make sure that you support the podcast in any way that you can. From Myron Lilley, my dad, Pops, Quinton Lilley, we appreciate everybody being on. Y'all have a good night. Peace.
Okay. Take care.